Hi there, and welcome to episode 3 of Ruinborne Devlog. And I've got some exciting stuff to show you that has changed. For starters, the whole game idea has kind of changed. The original idea was like a zomboid mixed with like 7 Days to Die type of thing. So a more like hardcore zombie game. But a game came out recently that kind of did all that. So the idea's changed slightly to match a little bit more fantasy and give us a little bit more of a open end to what we can do without actually like completely changing the game and still using a lot of the core systems that I've already built. For starters, you'll most probably notice that the world has changed to something completely different, and you can see this big E to interact. For starters, this is no longer a massive world with noise around. Instead, it's more like Sky Islands with a nice Raiders portal, is what I'm calling it. It's just a proof of concept of just shaders and some particle effects. It doesn't actually do anything, it's just there. Then we come over to here. These white lines are just regions with Terrain 3D, which is the terrain system that I use in Godot. And then I have this lovely portal. Keep in mind, this is all concept stuff. It's not official or anything like that, and will be redone before anything actually gets put out there. But for starters, it's just a portal that you can interact with. So the first thing we're going to see is a home world when you join a server and a portal selector, which is going to generate portals, which I've been hinting at what you can actually do, which is generating portals to different worlds. So using Terrain 3D, I created a procedural generation for, well, worlds. I can go up to iteration 566, and you can see that it generates a world. The output log will look something like this, so it's a bit of a large thing, but that's just to show that it's actually been written. So I can do it in editor, but we don't actually need to do these in editors. These will be done by the actual game code. So if we go in, you will see some grass, and in the grass, some rocks. You'll obviously see some trees because, well, they're very fucking large, and some glowing blue lights. And I'll get over all of these. So, for starters, the procedural generation system comes with a few noises that I can use. So the base noise is just like the heelishness. That's not even a word, but just how you can see the flat ground isn't actually flat. Then the mountain noise, which is what generates these mountains. These numbers are tweakable. Everything has a seed, so it's randomly generated at the start, so we can do some magical stuff with them, and pretty much go from there. With the auto shading, this is just a terrain 3D thing, so it allows me to pass in the texture IDs for what I want on the terrain. In this case, 0 being the grass and 1 being the rocks. I then have a path system, which isn't turned on for this map, but it just generates paths which look like dirt. And because we're using terrain 3D, you can see the path would be using. Oh, I've just made a giant circle. But as you can see, it would draw paths like that, and then they would go across the map, and you'd be able to see them. So that's all this path system is. But I don't use it because the first map won't need it. But it's there if I need it. The portal systems is just the entry points of where you could possibly spawn on the map. You can see these blue lights, which is what those are. They can only spawn on grass and, areas, but for some reason they like to overlap, which is something that I need to fix. And then there's the foliage system. So this is built into the multi-mesh instance system of Terrain 3D. It essentially spawns in lots of grass using the multi-mesh system. The foliage system uses foliage layers, which is another like custom thing that I've written, which takes in a bunch of information, scale, spawn density, position, scatter, should it spawn at the cliff base versus just spawning on grass, that type of stuff. So pretty much grass will spawn on grass textures, as it should. There's also rocks that will spawn in the grass textures. But if we hopefully find one, you will see that some rocks will only spawn near a cliff edge. So here. So I can add in variations for rocks based on how close they are to a cliff. On that part as well, we also have a lovely navigation system. So we're going to be using nav meshes, and as you can see, they like to get built. They mostly follow the grass, and they try to connect as much as they can, so that if you're sitting up here shooting at zombies down there, they can still get to you. The hope is that no map will have any areas that the player can stand where they can't get hit, because that's just boring. But hopefully when I design the enemies, there will be cases where if you're sitting up on a hill like this where they can't get to you, they will actually jump at you and instead, knock you off and stuff like that. But that's far away before I even get anywhere near that. But like I was saying, with the foliage, it will spawn near the edge of cliffs, and only spawn near cliffs or spawn on grass and whatnot. So there's a bunch of settings for that. And then there is another spawnable thing called spawnable objects. These are for things that need collisions in the world, or things that you would mess around with, like, trees. Terrain 3D, unfortunately, not yet, but I think it is coming. There is a lovely collision system for the multi-mesh instances. I'm not 100% sure on that one yet, but the hope is that there will be one there soon, and I'll be able to use that for a lot of things. In the meantime, I have spawnable objects, which spawn just scenes that I've created. So these trees are technically, if you give me a second to find them in the nodes, in terrain, are technically just this. There's nothing fancy about them. They are just a static object with a collision shape and a mesh. That's all they are. But I need the collision shape because I need to be able to do, like, hitting trees and stuff like that, so you gather wood and all that. So until I get that done, that's how these trees are spawning. But that means I can spawn in other things like objects like spawners, or I don't know, like anything that needs to be in the world that I don't actually need to have any access. That doesn't just need million of instances of them. But that is the big part of what's been getting worked on, which has taken quite some time to get done. So I'm just going to close that, and we're actually going to play the game. So the next one is we've got a new loading screen. It's obviously a PNG of the title. This is the new logo, and pretty much it's just a couple of shaders. It's one shader inside the portal doing that loading, and another shader is the background doing the space stuff. So the next thing is we've also got some UI. I've yanked or borrowed, however you want to put it, the Kenny UI that you can get for free off their website. Kenny does amazingly good free assets that you can grab. Most game developers will most probably have already heard of him. There is a shitload of assets that you can get for free. I'm using them for prototyping. Keep in mind that nothing that you see currently is going to be in the main game. A lot of this stuff is prototype or work in progress, or just stuff that will never make it to the game. So a lot of this stuff will be completely changed. So one of the things as well, I've managed to get a nice package off of Itch, which gave me a bunch of fonts. As you can see, there's quite a few fonts in this. These fonts will actually be permanent. They are chosen specifically for the game. So as you can see, another loading screen and whatnot. So I've changed a little bit of the menu as well, so it should scale a little bit better. And as you can see, here is a portal. Once again, prototype art. It will not actually look like this in the finished product, but for now, for getting stuff done, it's here. The portal, you press E, it opens up a portal. In this, you can choose different types of worlds to teleport to. These will be based on your level, how many times you completed it, have you killed bosses, whatnot. There's a lot of stuff to it. For now, Nexeralia, that's just the way that I pronounced it. You might think it's different, but anyway, here it is. It's a nice little thing. It's description, possible items that you can get. So this is where you're going to get like all the items. So in the sense of like your inventory and all that, which still exists, by the way. You still have an inventory, although there is nothing to pick up because this system is not getting a rework, but just a change in how this whole thing's going to work. But if we click open portal, it's going to bring up the loading screen again and start generating that world for us. In this case, it's just generating the world, and that's really it. So you can't actually see it because it's 1,000 blocks away. But if I go into this, you will see that it's actually generated the world. And as the player, I'm able to essentially walk around the world. This is randomly generated with different seeds every single time. There will be monsters that are walking around. The size of the worlds, I'm not too sure on yet. I've made them 512 by 512 on the Godot units, whatever you want to call that. I think it's half a kilometer, if that's the way that I put it. Whereas 1024 by 1024 would obviously be 1 kilometer. I don't know if those units actually line up, but that's essentially how I'm going to do it. Now, it will look like it's a bit laggy, but that is because I'm playing in Ultra HD. I have two instances of the game running, and I'm also recording at the same time. So on average, I was getting roughly about 120 FPS at Ultra HD, but there is a fair amount of optimizations that I still need to do, and a few fixes that I need to do. For some reason, grass does not like to spawn past a certain location. As you can see, it's like a straight line on the hill. These are all randomly generated seeds, so no two worlds will be the same. Well, the hope is that no two worlds will be the same. They might look similar, but they should hopefully be vastly different enough that you don't see them as the same. And that being said, that's really it for all the new features of the game. There's a lot to come and a lot of work to be done. I could break this game in 3 seconds by just clicking the disconnect button. As you can see, a camera opens up on another world. This should be a thing because the world is technically still around. But there is a lot of stuff being done. The game is coming along nicely. There is a bunch of ideas in the work as well for enemies, and I'm hopefully going to be bringing some of the enemies that were in my previous game, Onslaught Hero, which was a work in progress one that didn't actually make it. The hope is to actually bring those across as well, so we can have some, I guess, let them see the light of day. But the whole zombie idea is throwing that out. It's going to be a lot of different monsters, a lot of different universes, a lot of different stuff. But yeah, there's still a lot of stuff to do. But this is Devlog 3, obviously, so it's a functional game. The worlds do generate on both the client and the server, and multiple clients can join. Obviously, there's still a lot of bugs, so not all clients actually get the correct stuff. But we'll figure that stuff out as we go. But I hope you've enjoyed looking at the Devlog 3. I might try some different stuff with the next Devlog and try and make it a little bit more entertaining to watch with maybe monsters or something. But we've got a roadmap, I've got some stuff to do, and hopefully it comes together nicely that everyone can actually play the game. But if you enjoyed what you've seen and you're happy to give the channel a nice like and a nice subscribe, I would greatly appreciate that. As well as all the game stuff, obviously the logo. We didn't really show the logo a whole lot, but that's because it was just a work in progress. There isn't really a whole lot of stuff to it, but I'm using Inkscape and I'm building the logo like this. Hopefully if you start seeing this around the place, you'll go, oh, I know this game. But yeah, that's really it. But thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, as they always say, and I'll catch you in the next devlog.